It was a sunny Sunday morning, and the sunlight illuminated Derek Walker's living room, casting dynamic shadows across the furniture. Derek Walker's life seemed perfectly structured on the outside, every detail calculated to convey success and happiness. At 35, he had achieved much of what many aspired to: a stable job as a systems analyst, a spacious and modern apartment in the city center, loyal friends, and a loving relationship admired by others as the ideal couple. Derek smiled naturally with a confidence that showed. His colleagues described him as accomplished, helpful, and courteous. On weekends, he would often gather the group for a barbecue, reminiscing about past stories and dreaming of the future. His circle was wide, and he stood out as a host, welcoming everyone with ease. However, that Sunday, as he looked in the mirror, Derek paused thoughtfully. His eyes scanned the reflected image and found something indefinable. A strange feeling emerged from deep within, bringing a slight discomfort. He observed his well-groomed appearance, his trimmed beard, and yet something was missing. Life, no matter how bright and full of promise, seemed to leave an unexplored void inside him. He dismissed the thought with a sigh and went to the kitchen, where the coffee maker was already bubbling. As he prepared his coffee, Derek tried to ignore the growing unease inside him, a feeling that had been haunting him more and more. It was something he had been feeling for a while, a subtle restlessness that arose in moments of silence, when the cheerful voices of friends no longer filled the cozy environment, and the pleasant laughter dissipated. Derek was not unhappy. He loved his fulfilling job and appreciated the comfortable security his life offered. But as the days passed, he began to notice that he had become lazy and complacent. He had built such a comfortable life that any idea of change seemed unnecessary, almost an affront to the reassuring stability he so valued. This was the life he had always desired, wasn't it? But there were also the frequent small reminders: the growing fatigue climbing stairs, the gradual but constant weight gain, and the medical exams indicating slightly elevated cholesterol levels. They were easy problems to ignore in the whirlwind of daily life, but now, Derek was starting to feel the weight of these signs. They were like small bells ringing persistently in the distance, reminding him that, perhaps, he wasn't taking care of himself as well as he should. He found himself often thinking, "Am I really satisfied? Or am I just too comfortable to want something more?" These thoughts, like fast-moving clouds, were quickly brushed aside as he plunged back into the busy daily routine. But the shadow of a persistent question loomed. What if the happiness he felt was just a facade, a reflection of what others saw, but not representing his true inner reality? Derek lived a comfortable life, but something was missing. He began to wonder if the happiness he felt would be enough for a lifetime. The first doubts were planted, and without realizing it, a journey of self-discovery and change was beginning. In recent days, Derek had felt restless, as if awakening to something greater. Although his life seemed intact to others, he couldn't shake the growing sense that something was lacking. During a work meeting, while his colleagues excitedly discussed a new project, his mind wandered far from the room. Looking out the window at the city's frenetic activity, a sudden question arose. Does all of this make sense? That seemingly casual question resonated deeply within him, revealing an inner chord he had never touched before. Derek realized that over the years, he had been living on autopilot, fulfilling duties like a machine, but not truly living. He had stopped daring, stopped seeking new experiences. Life had become a predictable sequence of the same days. Suddenly, a reminder from the past resurfaced. Derek recalled the time when he was young and restless, when everything seemed an invitation to discovery. He used to run through the streets of the town where he grew up, play soccer with friends, climb trees, explore every nook like an adventurer. There was an inner sparkle, a yearning to know what the world had to offer. Where had that young man gone? That night, as he entered his home, Derek found himself staring at a frame propped on the console. It was an old photograph taken at the height of his youth. In it, at 20 years old, standing on the summit of a high mountain, the young man stood with arms open and a face lit up with broad satisfaction. The wind ruffled his hair, and happiness overflowed from his face. He remembered that moment vividly, the sense of freedom and accomplishment. He sighed deeply, feeling a nostalgia he couldn't suppress. Something inside him longed to relive that emotion, that genuine contentment that came from exploring the unknown and overcoming obstacles. But now, at 35, he no longer climbed mountains. In fact, he barely exercised. Climbing the stairs in his building was the extent of physical effort he allowed himself. Determined to break the routine, he went out for a nighttime walk. The streets were quiet, and the cool night air seemed to clear the fog clouding his mind. As he walked, he felt his body respond, muscles tightening, heart beating a little faster. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With each step, he felt closer to something important, something he had forgotten. He passed a park where he saw some people running. He watched a man, perhaps in his 60s, running vigorously, his rhythmic breathing, his determined look. He wondered if, when he reached that age, he would have the same energy, the same desire to stay active. That thought struck him strongly. He didn't want to grow old and feel he had wasted his potential, his vitality. He didn't want to look back with regret. Returning home that night, Derek felt different. There was a clarity in his mind that had been missing for a long time. He knew he couldn't transform his life completely overnight, but he also knew that continuing to ignore the emptiness he felt inside was no longer an option. It was time to take control of his life again and start directing it to a better place. As soon as he got home, Derek sat down in the kitchen, took a notebook and a pen, and began scribbling. He made a list of small changes he could implement to start his process of change. Walk 3 times a week, eat healthier, reduce screen time, maybe even start running again like he used to when he was younger. Each item on his list was like a promise he made to himself, a commitment to the person he wanted to become. Before going to bed that night, Derek looked one more time at the framed photo on the shelf. A small smile spread across his lips. Perhaps it wasn't too late to reconnect with that part of himself still inside, to rediscover the vibrant young man that lived within him. He knew the path wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to take the first step. Derek closed his eyes, feeling more hopeful than he had in years. The sun had barely risen on the horizon when Derek awoke from a vivid dream. It was still early, and the sky was a pale blue, signaling that the day would bring clarity and opportunities. Derek wasn't used to waking up so early without a reason, but that morning something was driving him. It seemed that his body had anticipated his mind, aware that this would be the beginning of a new era. As the first rays of sunlight illuminated the room through the curtains, he sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. The morning air filled his lungs, bringing a sense of freshness and renewal. He got up, still groggy from sleep, and headed to the bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror, staring at his own image. There was a different light in his eyes, a spark of determination he hadn't seen in a long time. "Today's the day," he murmured to himself, reinforcing the decision he had made. Derek put on a pair of sweatpants and an old t-shirt, laced up sneakers he hadn't worn in months, and left the house. Outside, the world was still waking up. A few people were walking on the sidewalk, and the birds were starting their morning songs. Derek felt the fresh breeze on his face, smiling as he realized the universe was welcoming him back. He headed to the nearby park, the same one where he had seen the elderly man running the night before. The place was serene, with groups practicing Tai Chi and others walking slowly along the trails. Derek started with a gentle stroll, feeling his muscles awaken with each step. The sound of his sneakers on the asphalt, the rustling of leaves in the trees, and the birds' songs created a simple yet comforting symphony. Derek woke up excited that sunny morning, ready to embrace a new challenge. After coffee, he put on his sneakers and went out to walk in the park, determined to resume his exercise routine. At first, each step felt like an achievement as his body readjusted to activity. His heart raced as he remembered the times he used to run with friends every morning, bringing back the same sense of joy and freedom. He imagined that if he persisted, he might soon regain his former vitality. After a few minutes, he felt his muscles starting to protest under the renewed effort. Breathing heavily and legs feeling heavy, he was forced to slow down. He stopped to rest on a bench, watching the sweat drip while his heart returned to normal. A healthy exhaustion now enveloped him, but he smiled, satisfied to have taken the first steps toward recovery. As he rested, Derek noticed the other people around, each absorbed in their own process. He understood that everyone there was seeking change, each on their own unique journey. He was part of that scene too, determined to tread the path of renewal. That day marked the beginning of Derek's journey. The path ahead was still uncertain, but he had taken the first step toward transforming his life. Each day, he would continue to make small changes, embracing the process of rediscovering himself and finding fulfillment. Derek knew that success wouldn't come from just the destination but from the journey itself. From each step he took toward a more vibrant and fulfilling life.